Zoli, you've said you no longer do house clearings and psychic stuff like you used to. Why did you decide to let go of that part of your research?
It's really exhausting and it exposes me as I become older and even more sensitive to energy fields. It exposes me to some things that I just don't want to do. If somebody asked me to and they were serious about it and it wasn't a demonic type situation, I might consider that. If it was discarnate entity like somebody that had passed over, poltergeist activity is usually somebody in the house that's disturbed, that's a living being doing that. But I'll give you an example. And I've done some pro bono work with law enforcement, and that's one of my favorite areas because these guys, they see a lot of stuff. So, no names and no places mentioned because I don't want that out there. But I did a walkthrough on a house of a law enforcement person whose daughter was in with a druggy guy, for lack of better words, and she was just kind of rebellious and disturbed in a way. And this guy, this law enforcement man was living with a woman that really wasn't great for him. There wasn't a connection. So what all that he had told me was that we're having some smells in the house that show up. We're having some discarnate, not voices, but something eerie that you can't quite hear, but you know it's there. All the stuff. So what I call all of this is radiation. You go into a house, and sometimes I would walk in doing a walk through and I would feel nauseous. It's like when you hitting radiation, you get nauseous. And that was one of my telltale signs that something just ain't right. So this is a lovely house in a lovely part of the city. And I walked in and I couldn't get a grip because there were so many energy fields coming through that and none of them connected. So I had to hunker down and ask my prayer protection and try to get clearer because there was clearly something in there trying to fog me, fear, obligation, and guilt about my own unresolved issues. And we all got them. We all got them. This is a very long time ago. And I was going through a lot of stuff too. Not like we're always not. But that was affecting me. And one of the signatures that I always look at in any house is recovery issues and codependency and addiction. Because we've all got somebody in the family or know somebody, or we are dealing with that. It's just life on earth, it's just there. So I started downstairs and I walked through, and it felt kind of clear. And as I was going up the stairs, it's like I got hit with a wall of heat, but it wasn't heat, it was internal heat. And I really can't explain that except it wasn't perceivable by my five physical senses. So I stood there for a minute with my hand on the rail, took a breath, and it abated, and I went up. And as I started walking through the bedrooms and the bathroom area, I said, this is not going to stop as long as this person's here. Because this person, whoever it is bringing this into your house to hurt you because you are the enemy. You represent the law, and this person is angry and has some icky attachments. Now, were they demonic attachments or discarnate people who had died from drug and alcohol? I didn't know because the person wasn't there. But I could walk around, and I don't like to touch things when I'm doing walkthroughs. I'm not the kind of person that can hold something and get a lot off of it. That's not one of my skills. And if any of you are doing this work and you have psychic or intuitive abilities, you'll find that About everybody you know who does this, we all have different skills, or we have the same skills and we access them a little differently. That's normal. It's normal for you to do that. So I know that I'm not good at psychometry, holding something. When I get something, I get it full body. I'm a clairsentient. I feel it 100%, and it's a knowing. I know it, and I get visuals. So I started, now I won't go into it because it'll reveal too much about the people there. I started getting visuals, and I see it almost like on a movie screen. And it's always in color of what this person was doing. And at the end of the walkthrough, I had to tell this lovely man, I said, unless you can get these people out of the house, this isn't going to stop. You can't just stop it from happening. So that's one situation, and not everything gets resolved. We were in Asheville, North Carolina years ago and staying at a lovely hotel that was old. And connected to the hotel with it, and downstairs where you walk in, there was an open doorway to a little shop on the right hand side. And I walked into that hotel and I went, oh my God, this is just packed. Here I am again. So there are some things that started happening in the room, little things moving and noises. And I mentioned it. We went downstairs and I went into that little shop and I asked her, I said, have you had any paranormal activity here? She says, oh my God. And then it's on. So we went down into the basement and I can tell you, I hate basements. It's always in the friggin' basement. I hate basements.
That was going to be my question. Why is it all? What's the deal with basements?
I wish I knew all of it, except that I know it's as real as gravity. There's something about the lower two astral realms, level 1 and 2. There's 7. Level 1 and 2 are what people call hell. The upper part of level 2 is the purgatorial aspect. Nobody sends you there. You send yourself out of fear, guilt, obligation, dogma. And it's icky. All the Dante's paradise, all that stuff is down there. All the levels are there because we humans have created it and it is packed with the demonic. The purpose of the demons is not to hurt you, but to keep you from hurting yourself. So the basements hold all this potential. It's like a cup that keeps getting filled. And I think, I haven't had this said, but I have visualized and seen it, that the first astral level, that one called the lower hell area, is in the earth. It's like a couple feet down and a couple feet above. I don't quite have does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense that that the lower we go, we're kind of connected to the different astral realms. We're physically in multiple realms at the same time. Is that right?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I think we are not specifically in the hell regions, but because of the propensity of negative emotions, the what I call all the sinful nature of humanity, whatever you want to call it, our ability to not do the right thing, that's that level. And it's touching us. That's the level of it. So that's why divinity is called higher power. It's higher, it is above that. The purpose of the demonic is to hold the physical world in place. And it so called escaped in a way during the Atlantean Wars 100,000 years ago, at the end of those, where there was a tie between the demonic, satanic energy and the white hats, whoever you want to call that. So the masters go into the caves and the high mountains of the world, waiting for the time to come back where humanity had evolved enough to be able to hear. Well, that time is now, and it's happened. And that's part of the conflict you're feeling. But I digress, as I like to do. So the basement thing, when I went down into this basement, this gal's husband, it was a nice little area. She told me he worked down here. And I thought, oh, I saw a picture of him being below her and her bossing him around. So there we had a recovery issue. And I spoke to them about that. But when I went down into the basement, there went down the stairs and it was concrete, you know. There was this lovely little gnome. It wasn't a gnome, it was more of a fairy. Think like Dobie, Harry Potter type fairy. And we talked for a few minutes, and he had some things he wanted to show me in the back. He had taken some things and put them in the back. They weren't physical. And he was rather lovely. And he said he'd been there for a very, very, very long time. What is that, a couple hundred years? I don't know. So I haven't forgotten him. He kind of taught me a lot about that species and what they do. But the basement area in that place held the secret, and they would float upstairs. And I can't fix things. I don't do that. I can call in the light as all people do. You're given that power by Christ to be able to do that. You can do that. But you have to be careful because this stuff is like a radiation. You can't just go wandering into any place because you're curious and not expect to be affected. You see what I'm saying? It can cause, look at what's happened with this wonderful, brave man, Zach Baggins, the paranormal show. He has sacrificed his body, his mind, and his spirit to this research. I admire him so much, but he's lost part of his. I think he's having some head issues. He's felt like he's just losing it. He has to wear a respirator. He's had breathing things. I think it's affected his eyes and his hearing. And it can affect you. So that is a person who has given up his life physically to do this work. I have huge respect for it. But don't do that. I'm not telling you to do that. If you
Without
are,
telling you that,
well,
how does a psychic prepare, or how do they do that? How do they prepare themselves to do the work?
you know, it's different for people. I know my nephew, David Espinoza, is a Sundance chief on the Rosebud. This is my Hunka family. And he has an altar, and they go into sweat, and I won't get into what happens in sweats. It's beyond this world. But you are given help from those who guard and guide you and protect you. You have an ability to listen and to see and to have the spirit of discernment. And you need to pay attention to that because you can get a lot of help to do that. And some people are called to it and some aren't. The dead love me. I mean, they absolutely love mediums. So, and I've had many situations when we go into hotels, if they're old places, I guarantee you, so-called something's going to happen.